So Kirsten Gillibrand managed to destroy all of her efforts at appearing to be a solid left-wing option in 2020 with one giant mistake here. Now, it's not really a mistake. She's doing it on purpose, but point is, when regular people read the headlines and see what she's doing, they're going to go, oh, okay, wolf in sheep's clothing. That's what you are. So take a look at this headline. This is from CNBC. Pfizer executive Sally Susman to host 2020 presidential fundraiser for Democrat Kirsten Gillibrand. Presidential candidate Kirsten Gillibrand is to attend a fundraiser at the home of Sally Susman, a top Pfizer executive, on March 31st, according to people with direct knowledge of the matter. Tickets cost $1,000 to $2,700, these people added. Susman is a major figure in Democratic fundraising circles. She was a lead bundler for President Barack Obama's 2012 re-election campaign. Okay, now this gets into a bigger conversation here about fundraising, and it's an important one, and people on the left need to keep having this conversation. It might be the most important conversation that we're having. Now, we already kind of got step one accomplished. Step one is, let's take the most obvious and direct form of corruption and eliminate it. You know what that is? Say it with me. Corporate PACs. Taking money from corporate PACs is the clearest form of corruption, the most direct form of corruption. Now, many of the 2020 candidates, a rising, like so many Democrats now are part of this no corporate PAC money caucus. So it's becoming a little bit of a litmus test, and that's a good thing in the Democratic Party. And we should definitely cheer all these candidates who say, I'm not taking any corporate PAC money. Now, Kirsten Gillibrand was one of the people who said, I'm not going to take corporate PAC money either. So credit where it's due. However, that only gets rid of the most obvious avenue of corruption. There are other avenues of corruption, needless to say. The second most important form of corruption and most direct form of corruption is what's called these big money bundling dinners, where you have an executive, whether it be an executive at an oil company or executive at a pharma company or executive at a for-profit health insurance company or an executive at a Wall Street financial firm, and they get a bunch of people together who are also super rich, and they charge $1,000 or $2,700, which is the individual limit, per plate. And then, they end up raising a lot of money, which is functionally from usually a very specific set of class interests. So you're going to have that room filled with pharma people. You're going to have that room filled with executives. You're going to have that room filled with mega rich people. And yeah, this is a form of corruption. So now when the Pfizer executive gives Kirsten Gillibrand a call, she's going to take it because she was responsible for raising a lot of money for her. And then when come to find out, maybe Kirsten Gillibrand goes back on the idea that maybe we should be able to negotiate for better drug prices. Like that's what happened with Obama. Obama ran on, oh no, we're going to allow the negotiation and we're going to get better drug prices. And then he dropped it when he got elected. Same thing could happen with Kirsten Gillibrand because she's actually snuggling up to big pharma executives. And this is why people don't trust politicians. So the real answer long-term when it comes to corruption, because this is corruption, is honestly getting money out of the political system and doing what's called clean elections and getting a constitutional amendment so you have it by law. That would get rid of the private financing of elections and would make it so that politicians are much more likely to represent the people. Now, until we get to that point, and that's a hard thing because you need a constitutional amendment because the Supreme Court has had a bunch of horrendous rulings basically saying money equals speech, so you can't just pass a law. You have to do it through a constitutional amendment. But until we get to that point, the second best thing we can do is, to kind of have litmus tests and say, you can't take corporate PAC money, but the second point is, you can't do these big money bundling dinners because that's another form of corruption. Now, some people at this point might say, well, come on, Kyle, then what? I mean, you have to raise money as a politician, so what are you going to do? Like, what are you going to allow where you say it's okay and it's not corruption? Listen, I think I'm fairly open-minded on this point, and what I would say is, most of your money, most of it, over 50%, should come from small dollar donations. Small dollar donations under law are technically $200 or less. Now, can some of your money come from big donations? Yes, because if you define big as anything over $200, well then by the end of this campaign season, I'm going to be considered a big donor to Bernie Sanders. But am I a big donor? No, I'm not a big donor. I'll do a recurring $100 a month, donation to him. But soon, I'll be over that in 3 months. I'll be over the $200 small dollar limit, so I will technically go on record as a big donor to him. So if most of your money is coming from small donors, people giving under $200, that's a good sign, because that means you're just going to represent those regular people. Then you can have some money from big donors, but it makes a difference if it's a regular worker at Pfizer or a pharma company or even at a Wall Street bank or whatever. If it's a regular worker versus an executive who's giving that money with strings attached. So in my mind, if most of your money comes from small donors, and if you can take some big donor money, but it can't be with strings attached, and it's got to be, if somebody gives $1,000 in their fucking whatever, an attorney, and there's no strings attached, that's fine. But also, if you do take any PAC money at all, it better be a PAC that is more benign than corporate PACs. So, like Bernie, for example, has he ever taken PAC money? Yes. You know what that PAC money's from? Unions. So I'm still against it, but I just think that the interests of unions are much more aligned with working people than the interests of Wall Street banks, so I'm not as mad at it. I still think it's not cool to take PAC money, but if you are going to take any PAC money, if it's from an environmental PAC or if it's from a union PAC, that's a lot less shitty than taking it from big oil, taking it from the NRA, taking it from Wall Street, so on and so forth. So basically, the more the money comes from small dollar donors, the better. And that's the general benchmark of how honest a politician is and how corrupt they are. And with Kirsten JelloBrand, she just got rid of the biggest form of corruption, which is corporate PACs, but she's using the loophole and going right to the big money bundling dinners, which is what this is. And she will definitely represent the interests of Big Pharma, because this is a gathering of executives who are going to give her a shitload of money, $1,000 to $2,700 a pop, and then she's going to take the call from Big Pharma, and then there's going to be no real regulation that fights back against them. So this is why people hate politicians, and this is why people hate politics, and I don't blame them, because the thing is, Kamala Harris, Kirsten JelloBrand, Cory Booker, Julian Castro, Howard Schitz, like, these are all people who, well, not Howard Schitz, he's dumb enough to not know to put on the act, but there's a lot of corporate Democrats these days who know to put on the act as if they're progressive as they continue business as usual. That's not cool. That kind of sucks. So they're smart enough to play politics better, but ultimately they're doing the same things behind the scenes. That's what Kirsten JelloBrand is repping right here, and this is why, you know that she's not being totally upfront and truthful with everybody. So this was a terrible move on her part, and she should have known better. But she got caught, and that gives us more information, and she immediately drops down that list even more in terms of the ranking of candidates.